Hi, I hope you've had a lovely week and I'm so happy to have you today. I'm Eva and you're listening to Connected with Eva, the podcast on human connection. I had a very interesting experience this week that I want to talk about. Prior to going, I knew this experience would be a basis for an episode. So while I wasn't sure if I'd actually enjoy the experience, I knew it would be fruitful. So let's dive into it. I attended a free community dinner at a co-working space this Monday. The way I found out about it was about a month or two ago. I saw the co-working space on Instagram and they were advertising it as they do this event every single month. If you've been following along, you know this podcast is all about connection, how we build it, why it matters, and what gets in the way. And let me tell you, this dinner was a perfect case study for all of that. So the way it works is you express an interest, join the waitlist, and then find out, maybe on the day even, if you get a spot. Here's the catch though, 2,000 people were on the waitlist for 100 spots. Yep, you heard that right, 2,000 people. I felt lucky to snag a seat, but it also made me realize how much people are craving these kinds of experiences. Here I'll also briefly mention that there are quite a few apps in big cities like London that are paid for, subscription basis normally, where you go and you share a dinner with 5 to 8, maybe 10 people. The app team selects a restaurant and you go and meet strangers. So the setup for this particular event was no reserved seats, no pre-mixer. It's kind of a lucky dip situation where you have no idea who you'll end up sitting next to. I love the idea. I love the concept of it. The organizer spoke at the beginning, and obviously there will be a tiny little part that's a marketing campaign, but I could feel they genuinely wanted to create human connection. And they were partnering with a charity that was sponsoring the night. And I loved the idea of the charity, which is a communal kitchen where you can go and even learn how to cook. You can have affordable meals, and it's all about creating a community and looking after people. And this is what a community is all about. At the beginning, the night felt spontaneous and open to me. Like everyone was on equal footing. I was sharing my podcast idea with people and I told them that's one of the reasons I went, and everyone was quite excited and interested and wanted to know more. There were other people with podcasts. But as the night went on, I started to feel a little overwhelmed. There were just too many people and the energy was high, but also it was a lot. The woman sitting next to me felt the same way. We bonded over how intense it was, and she pointed out something interesting. The crowd wasn't super diverse in terms of age. Here's the thing, connection takes time and purpose. You can't just throw 100 strangers in a room and expect deep, meaningful relationships to form overnight. Don't get me wrong, the dinner was fun and I met some interesting people. But it was extremely overwhelming. So how do we fix that? Maybe it's about creating smaller, more intimate spaces within the larger event, or having more structured activities that encourage deeper conversations. Or maybe just even making sure there's a follow-up after the event, like a WhatsApp group or a shared project. Let's be real here, not everyone thrives in a room full of strangers. For some people, it's energizing. For others, like me, at times, it's exhausting. I think it comes down to personality types as well. Extroverts might love the chaos and the chance to meet as many people as possible, while introverts might prefer smaller, quieter settings. And then there's the question of who these events are really for. If the crowd skews young, does that unintentionally exclude older people? As mentioned, if it's first come, first served, Does that leave out folks who can't commit to signing up the second the waitlist opens? These are all things to consider if we want to build truly inclusive communities. When we're in a crowded, high-stimulation environment, our brains are bombarded with sensory input, voices, movement, and even subtle social cues like body language and facial expressions. This can trigger what's known as cognitive overload, a concept studied extensively in psychology. Cognitive overload happens when our working memory, the part of the brain that processes and holds information in the short term, gets overwhelmed by too much input at once. A study published in the Journal of Experimental Psychology found that people in noisy and crowded environments experience reduced cognitive performance and increased stress levels. For me, this explained why the dinner felt so intense. There were too many people, too many conversations, and too much noise for my brain to process comfortably. And also there's social anxiety, which could amplify this overwhelm. In a room full of strangers, this can feel like being on stage without a script. And actually, we did have to perform because one of the icebreakers, once we were sat down, was to paint the person opposite, which me and some of the other people found counterproductive because you weren't talking while you were taking the pictures. When it comes to who thrives in these kinds of events, there's a research done that shows that extroverts have a lower baseline level of cortical arousal, meaning they need more external stimulation to feel just right. For them, a crowded room full of strangers is like fuel. It gives them the energy to engage, connect, and enjoy the chaos. On the other hand, introverts, perhaps like me sometimes, tend to have higher baseline arousal, so they're more easily overstimulated. A study in the Journal of Research and Personality found that introverts report feeling more drained after social interactions. But it's not just about extroversion and introversion. People high in openness are more likely to enjoy novel and diverse social experiences, like trying new foods or meeting people from different backgrounds. They might thrive in events like the community dinner because they see it as an adventure. Meanwhile, those low in openness might prefer familiar, predictable settings. And here I will have to say, I thought I was more open in that sense, but I do get too overstimulated, so perhaps I need to reconsider this. Highly agreeable people are often skilled at navigating social dynamics and making others feel comfortable, which can make large events more enjoyable for them. However, they might also feel pressure to please everyone. So given the science, it's clear that extroverts, highly open individuals, and those high in agreeableness are most likely to thrive in events like the community dinner. They're energized by social interaction, curious about new experiences, and skilled at building rapport quickly. However, that doesn't mean introverts or those low in openness can't enjoy these events. They just might need more structured, smaller, quieter spaces to feel comfortable. I think what turned the dinner for me was when there was a call for a bingo where people were kind of forced to go up to strangers and ask them questions and then move on to the next person and the next person and the next person and fill out their cards with people's names, and then whoever did it immediately won a free drink at the bar. And at that point I felt really uncomfortable about moving because for me that seat at the table was kind of my safe space, so I just wanted to stay there. So for me that dinner would have been perfect without the bingo element. And on that note, research from the Journal of Social and Personal Relationships suggests that introverts often form deeper, more meaningful connections in one-on-one or small group settings. So some practical takeaways. If you're designing or attending an event like this, it's worth considering how to balance the needs of different personality types. For instance, you could create smaller pods or tables with guided conversation starters to reduce overwhelm. And I think conversation is better than painting. At the end of the day, I'm really glad I went. It was a unique experience and it gave me a lot to think about. But it also reminded me that connection isn't one size fits all. What works for one person might not work for another, and that's okay. But again, I'm very glad I went, also because now I have something to talk about. So, if you're listening and you've been to an event like this, did it feel overwhelming to you? Did you make any meaningful connections? And if you haven't been to one, would you go? Let me know. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll catch you next time. Until then, keep seeking those connections. Bye.